Welcome back to Rising from the Shadows, the podcast where we explore the journey of healing from trauma, reclaiming power, and thriving beyond the shadows of our past. I'm your host, Marlon, and today I'm thrilled to bring you another powerful conversation. My guest today is Elizabeth Aguilera. Elizabeth spent 30 years in corporate IT before her life took an unexpected turn when her job was offshored while she was on vacation in Jamaica. That shocking moment became the gift that liberated her to pursue her true calling. Now a certified life coach, she helps women break free from the nightmare of narcissistic abuse and reclaim their lives. I'm very excited to have Elizabeth on the pod, and I believe her story will inspire and empower you to take the next step on your own journey. Elizabeth, welcome to the pod.
Thank you, Marlon. I'm so excited to be here today to speak on a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. And I just want to mention narcissists come in all genders and in all types, and both men and women are vulnerable to this happening to them. So I'm happy to arm your audience with valuable information so they can sidestep the drama.
Absolutely. Well, I'm really thrilled to have you on. The first question I always like to ask is pretty open-ended. I'd like you to kind of take it in the direction that you would like. I'd like to begin with, can you share a part of your personal journey that brought you to where you are today? And like I said, feel free to take that in any direction that feels meaningful to you.
Sure. Well, my story is that I attracted back to back narcissists when I was younger. Uh, I was with an overt narcissist from the ages of 16 to 32. And I didn't know a whole lot back then when I met him at 16. I was naive and a people pleaser and an empath. And I just wanted my own love story. And I did have goals and I was working on them. And I did have a successful career despite the narcissist, because when I look back, I can see how he was trying to sabotage the things that I was doing. But after the relationship with the overt narcissist, I attracted a covert narcissist, and the covert narcissist is dangerous because they're not loud and showy,
Mm-hmm.
and you can be caught in their trap thinking you're safe with them, but you're not. There's they still have the same underlying need for uh, power and control, and they want to feel important and they feel entitled. And they may appear kind and supportive, but they're dangerous because they wear a mask of being shy or introverted. So you let your guard down with them. But
I want to put a pin in there because you said something that I think that was very interesting about you being ambitious, having goals, being successful in your career. Um, Most people seem to think that narcissists pick on losers. Like people that don't have much going on for them. When the opposite is actually true. Can you just share with me a little bit more about kind of like your ambition and how you were working towards things and how you were achieving before? Well, I guess it was during your relationship with the narcissist. But just tell us about like how you were enriching your life.
yeah, well, you're absolutely right. The narcissist loves people on their path. They love people who are successful. They love people who are on a mission. They are attracted to them because they also are, it's very important for them to look good. So the better you look, the better they look. And so it's an interesting dynamic because all the things that they like about you in the beginning, your drive, your ambition, all of your success, over time, they break it down or try to break you down. And the very things that they were attracted to become the very things that they try to use against you and
Yeah.
pull you down to their level. Basically, you're so out of their league and they know it. And the only thing that they want to do is bring you down to their level so that they can come up. Um, but yes, as I said, I was on a path. I was in high school because I was 16 when I met him, I knew I wanted to graduate high school. I knew I wanted to go to college. I knew the major I wanted to study. I knew I wanted to have a successful career. And I was setting everything up and very devoted and very dedicated to my studies. School was number one, and everything around school, activities and all the things was very important to me. And I knew that it's who I was. That was my identity. And I didn't compromise on anything with that. So he was always going to be taking a back seat to my first ambitions. Um, and he hated that. He absolutely hated that. Um, he did try to sabotage me in many different ways now that I look back. He had stalkerish behavior that I dismissed. He would make up false crises the night before something important to
Mm,
me, like the night before I was taking the SATs.
mhm,
He hated my friends. He did drive a wedge between me and my best friend during those early years. Um, and he was always asking, when am I going to be number one? He hated school being number one in my life. And then when I graduated school and I was trying to, you know, start my career and I was dedicated to trying to master that part of my life. And so I did put a lot of hours in there, and he hated that too. He resented anything that wasn't him. And when am I going to be number one? He was number one. Clearly, there was nobody else in my life. I didn't
mhm.
understand this question. Where is this
Was
question
he
coming
as
from?
educated as you were?
No,
No.
no.
Mm, interesting.
He talked a lot about going to college. He talked a lot about having a career, but he did not have ambition and drive to do it himself. He talked
Mm,
about how great he was all the time, but there was really nothing to back that up with. It was all talk.
mm. You know, you mentioned about the narcissist like hating the parts of you that were great. I I don't know where it is, but I was given a talk and I was expressing how the issue with the narcissist in the beginning is it's not so much that they think you're great, but they think a relationship with you will fill in the gaps that they have in themselves just by sheer contact, not
Mhm.
through like self development or anything like that. It's just like by nature of me standing next to you and you being in my life, me being you being a hard worker will mean that I am a hard worker. Me being you being an intellectual means that I am an intellectual. You being good looking means that I am good looking, and like, and I'm desirable and stuff like that. And then what turns out to be that, well, you kind of have to work for the things you want in life, and they're unwilling to do the work, but they feel so entitled to the benefits of the work, and then that's when the hate kicks in,
A
and
hundred
it's so
percent.
subtle. Yeah.
100%. Yes, it's a sick dance of domination. Um, so yeah, they again, they know you're out of their league because you are doing the work and they see it. And I love this what you just said. They think they're just going to by osmosis, you know, reap all the rewards by being near you and in your orbit. They reap some rewards, like,
Yeah, for sure.
but but they don't get what they really want. Um, and so yeah, I love that um, what you just shared. But yeah, they
I have another question about that relationship. Did you I'm assuming that you felt that he was like the best thing since sliced bread when you met
yeah,
him. Yeah.
yeah. I
What
was
was things
16.
about him that felt like so um valuable to you?
Yeah, at 16, I really was just, I couldn't wait for my own love story, in love with love kind of a thing.
Mhm.
And I did not know what a healthy relationship looked like. So he was so interested in me. He made
Mm,
so much time for me. He spent all his time with me. We would talk on the phone for hours. He would
yeah.
ask questions. He was just so interested in me. I had never had anyone be so interested in me in my life.
Mm.
And I thought, isn't that wonderful that he wants to get to know me? And so, yeah, very quick, and it was very quick. The relationship moved very quickly. Um, and he very, very quickly became the center of my world. You know, we were always with each other. We were always spending time with each other. The weekends were always, we knew what we were making plans with each other. And I
And at this
just,
point, that was mutual, right? Like the mutual infatuation?
yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes.
I think that's so important because, um, people I remember feeling like guilty, like, "No, I love bombed her." I was because I moved fast as well, having never experienced, like, any type of emotional intimacy that deeply, right?
Mhm.
So, like, when I locked onto it, it's like, "Wow, this is the real thing,"
Yeah.
and you're listening to me, we spend yeah, this is, like, in the age when nobody's spending time on the phone anymore, we're just texting. We spent, like, 3, 4 hours on the phone at a time, you know?
Yeah.
Of course, the weekends were dedicated to each other. Um, Interestingly enough, for me, that happened during a winter school break. So she invariably had a lot of time on her hand that she didn't normally do. But none of that connected with me that that's not the way that person is. It's just in the moment of convenience, they were able to provide this, level of intimacy, and I liked it, and I reciprocated the same amount of effort and energy. Um,
Sure.
can you say anything about were there any when you started coming to grips with like, wow, this is a type of relationship I was in, did you have any feelings like, oh wow, like I was the abuser, like I was the one
Oh,
that moved
no.
this along too fast? No.
No, no. He was definitely a predator.
Mm.
That's how I see it.
And you
Definitely a
felt that
predator.
like right away, like once you started separated.
Um, to tell you the truth, I didn't know what I lived through until decades after I was I had left him. I did not know what was going on. It didn't I knew it was toxic. I knew it
Mm,
was unhealthy. I knew this was beyond anything that anyone around me had ever gone through. And I knew it was not the place for me. I knew all those things. But
mhm,
all my energy was going into survival and into getting away. All I wanted was peace.
mm,
The bar was set very low. Like all I wanted was peace. And so since all my energy was going into saving my sanity, doing what I had to do every day, take care of my son, go to work, when I was in the marriage, um, I didn't really have time to reflect on anything during that time. Um, I didn't even know it was an abusive relationship until again decades later. I just didn't know. I Because I didn't have a healthy relationship model. I didn't know what
mhm,
healthy love felt like. At the time, I thought this is it. He showed up as Prince Charming. He showed up as everything that you can imagine somebody would want, and I believed it.
mhm.
I didn't have any reason not to. I was completely hoodwinked, I guess you might say. I bought into it hook, line, and sinker when I met him, and it stayed like that for a very long time. Honestly, it wasn't until after we got married because we dated for 8 years.
Interesting.
We dated for 8 years because remember, I was young,
Mhm,
so it took me a while to get myself together. I wanted to graduate high school. I wanted to graduate college. I wanted to get myself, into a really great job. Those were my goals and my ambitions, and I was going to do all that before anything. And then when I finally got where I wanted to be, um, that we got married, and that's when everything changed. When he felt he really had me,
yeah,
and that I was trapped. That's when his colors really started to show.
yeah. It seems, I remember what when we were talking in our pre-interview call, um, how we were reminiscing about like how unimaginative narcissists are, and how like they all follow the same script. I shared with you that story with a friend of mine I was having lunch with, and I was telling him what was going on in my life, and he said, "You know, Marlon, if we switch the person that was sitting in my office that I was talking to the other day and you here at lunch, it wouldn't make a difference. Your stories are identical." Um,
It's so
and
true.
it's and, I went down the rabbit hole of, like narcissist abuse support groups, and everyone's stories are the same. It's almost like comical how not only the themes, but like actual words
Oh, yeah.
said, like, are identical as if they have a group chat that they're
Oh
saying.
god, it's absolutely true what you're saying. There is a playbook and there are tactics, and the wonderful thing is once you learn what the playbook and the tactics are,
Mhm.
you can use that to your advantage so
Yeah.
that you can sidestep them in the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that you had, your first narcissistic relationship was overt and the second
Yeah,
one was covert.
yeah.
I didn't have a lot of, romantic partners, when I was a younger person. So, um, that first relationship was like my first like real relationship, and that was covert, but my overt narcissist was my father, and he was full of rage, and he was very violent, and he was very grandiose. I remember him, like, my uncle was over one day, and I don't know, he was on a tirade, and he said at one point, like, "I believe I am the smartest person in the world." He said, "I don't think I know everything, but I believe I'm the smartest person in the world. This brain of mine works." And I remember, like, it was a tense situation, and it's not wasn't a situation that I should want to laugh, but I remember, and I was probably 12. I remember wanting to laugh. It's like, "What the hell are you talking about right now?" So that was my pattern of just, like, great violence, grandiose thinking and words, very intense outward shows of dominance and control. So when I was approached with the covert side, not in a million years would I think it was the exact same thing packaged differently. Um, can you share with me, like, how different and how the same, it was between the overt relationship and the covert relationship?
Yeah, sure. Well, in the end, they were very, as you say, different and the same. They just wore a different mask, but underneath, they want the same thing: power and control over you. They want to get their way and their needs met. But they go about it different ways. The overt narcissist is, as the word says, he's out there or she's out there. The behaviors are out there. And if you're looking for them and if you're aware, which is always number one, you can see them. You can see the behaviors if you're looking for them. With the covert one, though, because they have a mask of maybe shyness or introverted, or they're just not out there. They might be very kind. Everyone thinks they're
Mhm,
amazing. They're really friendly. Like
mhm,
so they they really have a great mask that they put on because everyone thinks they're just the best person.
mm,
And it takes a while to figure out what's really going on. It's very, very dangerous. And
yeah.
in a way, I thank the overt narcissist for at least telling me who they are,
Yes, right? It was
showing
easy
me
to move on.
showing me who you are because I can make sense of that and say, "Okay, I know what's going on here." But the covert is so dangerous because, yeah, it's hard to know
Yeah.
what's going on unless you spend time with them, you know?
Yeah, I always say that their secret weapon is plausible deniability. Plausible deniability. Everything is passive aggressive. And I think when people say passive aggressive, they think of snarky behavior, but it's like that's not what I'm talking about. It's just like, the power of suggestion and saying, like, don't you think that it would be better if this, like, it's so non-confrontational. It's so
They have amazing social
sweetly
graces,
duplicitous. Yeah.
very
Yeah. Oh my
smart.
God.
They're very smart. They know
Yeah.
what to say, they know how to
Yeah.
say it. so that exactly what you said,
Mhm.
so that, they're, it's a killing you with kindness, but it's manipulation. It's still manipulation to get their way, but they're hiding it under a much nicer mask, really.
You wanna hear something funny? Uh,
Sure.
the last Christmas that I spent with my narcissist, uh, they're like, "Can I, get you a Christmas gift?" That was a little touchy because, um, they had a habit of promising things and never delivering.
Mhm.
Um, and one of the gifts that I got was a vitamin D lamp to, like, help with depression.
Okay.
It was like a
Thank you.
that's so nice, right? Like, I'm having a hard time. So,
Yeah,
let me get you this thing to help you with depression. Meanwhile, as soon as I stepped out in freedom, is like,
exactly.
for the greater part of my adult life, I had so much negative self-talk and rumination, and when I tell you, as soon as I stepped out, with, like, 0 effort, all of that stopped. I can't tell you the last time I had a negative thought, like self-talk. I can't tell you the last time.
Absolutely.
It was, like, immediate. Um,
Yes.
but it was just so funny to me that, that they got that lamp,
Yeah, thanks
to
for
make
being
it feel
so
like you were
helpful.
caring, right? So helpful. I care about your mental health.
Oh, I get it, I get it, and actually, the point that you're touching on, and I would love to bring up is I had all these random illnesses when I was in the thick of it,
Mm,
and no doctor could figure out what was wrong with me. I felt so sick, I had heart palpitations, I had to wear a
yeah.
monitor for 24 hours. I had all these things that were wrong with me, I thought. I felt so ill. And guess what? All those things went away when I chose me and I
Yeah.
said, I can't do this anymore. And I really have to just leave this person. So that's actually a really good thing to bring up
It's
because
so
it might.
wild how your body literally rejects the abuse. It's like, histamine being, like, put into your body to get the allergen. I remember I was actually having dinner with a friend, last night, and everybody that knows Marlon knows, like, I'm a big yapper, I'm very social, I love, if I'm in a room with people, like, I'd rather talk to a whole bunch of people at different times and have a one-on-one for an extended period of time. That's my personality. I was invited to a conference in Vegas to give a talk. I had been doing pretty well with my marketing and my business, and other professionals in the industry noticed, and asked me to join a panel to kind of talk about my efforts. I remember being in the hotel room and not being able to leave, having
Mm.
the biggest panic attack. Like, I don't want to leave the hotel room. I don't want to go out and mingle with these people. So not like Marlon. And what had happened was, over the years, I had just been drained of all the glitter, all the essence, all the sparkle, all the joy, and I didn't know it, and it was the most bizarre thing. I was like, "I don't understand why I don't wanna walk out here and do what I love doing and I'm good at doing." Um,
Yes.
and I remember, like, my face swole up, like, I had, like, very, puffy cheeks, like, my eyes were gaunt and sunken, um, just over a course of a few years, and, like, my body was, I was so bloated, constantly bloated,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh
Yeah. I'm so sorry that you had to go through that, but yes, what you're describing is absolutely, what happens. The world loses color. I was
Mm,
walking around and everything was gray. I
mm.
stopped smiling. I didn't have any joy in my life. There was nothing to look forward to. If I looked forward to something, he had some kind of spidey sense about it, and
Yes!
he would cancel those plans at the last minute. And so even if I was looking forward to something, he was training me,
Mhm,
don't look forward to
yeah.
anything because it can be ripped out right from under you. And so it's a systematic destruction of a human being through emotional and psychological abuse. That's what
Say
narcissism.
more about the training, because I feel like people don't understand that especially, like, it's like you said, like anything important. um, uh, like he would cancel. For in my case, it was protesting important things. I'm talking about like anniversaries and date nights and oh, can we not do this? But if I quote unquote got my way and like you were now there, it would find a way to ruin it, to make it an
Oh, yes.
unenjoyable experience.
Oh,
Um, and what it did was to train me not to ask, to feel better in my own company than in relationship
yeah.
or to share any emotional intimacy, and it
Yes.
was effective. I was well trained to, to not ask and not
Yes.
expect.
Yes.
I was talking to my therapist when, um, and I was telling her that I had mentioned before that gift giving was, like, interesting thing where gifts would be promised that were never delivered. In fact, frequently, they would print something off the printer and say, like, "Oh, the gift is not here yet, but this is what I'm going to give you," and they would never do it. Um, and it was so bad, one year for my birthday, I asked, "Can we just clean the basement? I would love to you help me to clean the basement for my birthday." Would you like to guess whether we actually ever did that?
Oh, I'm sure not.
But when we had to sell the house, to divide our assets and everything, I start laughing because where were we? In the basement. I finally got my birthday gift years later because here we are cleaning the basement, getting it ready to sell the house. And it was like
Oh,
so ironic. And I was
isn't
telling my
it?
therapist, it's so absurd. But the training is so effective. Like, how sad was it that, like, what I knew that I couldn't expect anything great. So, could you help me
Yeah.
clean the house? You know?
I'm so sorry. Yes, they make us set the bar so low for ourselves.
Mm,
Um, it's crazy, and things that are just normal and natural. Um, we, we won't get.
mhm.
Um, they want their needs to be met, and so if they're the ones who are always having their needs met, then we can't have any. And
Right.
so the training is you won't get anything you want. Don't bother asking. You know it's not going to happen. And yeah, it's a systematic chipping away of at the essence of who you are. Like I don't matter.
Mm,
I'm not asking for anything off the wall, and you can't even give me this simple thing.
right. Yeah.
So you're told again and again, not in words necessarily, but certainly in actions, sometimes both, that you're just not worth it. You're not important to me.
Yeah.
Again and again and again.
I'm curious, did you have any friends that were going through similar situations?
No, none of my friends could understand what I was going through.
Mm, yeah.
They also saw that it was crazy, it was toxic, it was all kinds of things, but we didn't have the words. This was back in
Right.
the early 90s. There was no vernacular of narcissist. We didn't know what that was. I
Mhm,
certainly didn't know what any of that was. And I had no words to describe what I was living. It was
mhm.
hell. It was a
Yeah.
nightmare. And even my friends knew only surface things about what was really going on in my life.
Yeah.
Nobody knew the real story but me. There was so
Yeah.
much shame and so much they'll never believe me. Or,
Mhm.
how could I have let this happen? How did this
This
happen?
smart, intelligent, driven, ambitious person, how could I let this happen to me?
How
Yeah.
could I let this happen? Nobody would ever believe that my life has come to this. And so there's tremendous shame, that
Yes.
I couldn't fix this, and I tried everything to fix it, and still I couldn't fix it. And you try to make sense, you're trying to be logical about how to fix this relationship, but you can't bring logic to a narcissist because there is no such thing with a narcissist as logic.
Right.
Because even if you give them what they want, they move the goalpost. And then that thing that
Exactly.
they wanted was no longer what they wanted. That's not enough anymore. Now you got to reach over here, and you'll never ever win. You're
Yeah.
set up for failure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a very hard pill to swallow that you believe the lies were truth. It's
Yeah.
a very hard pill to swallow that It was a bait and switch. They showed you someone that you fell in love with, that you thought they were, and then that's not who they were at all.
Yeah.
And then the nightmare of a person that shows up in front of you is who they really are. And you're like, but that can't be, because I know the version of them that I fell in love with. And your
Mhm.
mind is boggled and confused, trying to make sense of what happened when there really is no making sense of
Yeah.
what happened. It
Yeah.
is what it is. They are who they are. And it's unsatisfying. There's no closure, there's no explanation, there's none of that. But you, in order to find freedom, you really just have to say, it is what it is. I accept it, that I will never understand this, and it's okay. It's okay. Because
Yeah.
the more energy you give to trying to figure it out, the ruminating, the obsessing, the maybe if, what it maybe that, maybe if I could have, all of those thoughts just keep you stuck and in pain and in suffering. And
Yeah.
so it's it's a very, that's why one of the reasons it's so difficult to break from them, and then to continue your life and create a life where
Mhm.
you're happy, is because so many of us are stuck trying to figure things out that are not figure outable. they're just they're they just are what they are.
I'm curious, if you experienced this, and you mentioned about the lack of closure. I've gotta say, now it didn't feel great then, but now when I look back, um, the smear campaign that ensued, me walking away, was the best gift that could have ever been given me. And but I mean, it broke me. Oh god, it broke me. Like, to think of, you know, people that I thought were my friends that never even reached out and said like, "Oh, you know, Marlon, I'm hearing some things about you that don't sound like you. Are you okay? Like, how can I support you?" Like, no, zero. The only people that ever reached out were people that were trying to get me to reconcile. They were the only people that ever reached out, and I'm talking about people like our kids were growing up together. We did play dates. We went to the park. We celebrated birthdays with each other. There were different. There were cultural differences. My son learned how to, like, sing happy birthday in Polish, like, because that's what his friend's birthday, like, it wasn't like superficial. At least I didn't think they were surface level relationships, but not one. Um, God, I was so I was so broken by that.
Yeah.
Mainly because I was thinking like, how do you not know my character? What is it about my character that ever gave you an inclination that I would do anything but the right thing, even at the cost of myself? Like, what? But if it wasn't for that, I would have continued being stuck, because prior to that, I remember, I was in a session with my therapist, and I was like, um, Leslie, I don't even care right now. I want to give her everything. I know I can start over. I can figure out money myself. Like, I don't want to take anything. I don't need any money from the house or whatever. I felt so guilty for walking away. I felt so guilty for walking away. And if it wasn't for my friend, who happens to be a therapist, she's my good friend from Philly, and she texted me and she was like, Marlon, so and so uh, just texted me asking me essentially to help her manage you from telling your story. I was like, what? And she like showed me the text. I was like, oh my God, something is happening here. And that's when I realized what was happening. And
Wow.
immediately there was something in me that woke up. It like woke up and just was like, okay, we don't feel guilty. Like, we're taking care of ourselves because that's what we deserve and it's the right thing to do. Um, and everybody has to be accountable for their own choices in life. And it's not on me to take on the guilt. And it was at that time I started to release the shame part of me feeling so much shame because of the relationship I was, and potentially disturbing the very positive image that that individual had. It was just like you said before. It's such a shame-driven situation on both sides, on the narcissist side and on the codependent side. It's a
Yes.
shame-driven relationship. But the gift, the smear campaign was the gift. Did you have any gift in walking away?
Oh, so many gifts in walking away. Absolutely. Um, Now I can say that, right? At the time, it
Mhm.
is very hurtful, and I can absolutely it resonates when you say, "How can people not know me and my character and actually believe these lies?" But a wonderful thing is it clears out a lot of people that you don't need in your life really fast.
Mhm.
If
Yeah.
they're going to believe the worst about you, um, so easily, then they are not people who deserve to be in your life. And so while it's hurtful, it's also a great purging process, um, because you will lose many friends and sometimes family and
Yeah.
lots of people around you. Um, yeah, and it's hard to come to a place where you're okay with it. But um, yeah, I say thank you to everything I went through.
Yeah.
Thank you to the narcissist for being as awful as you were, because if you weren't as awful as you were, I'd probably still be married to him.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I thank you for the lessons and the resilience and the strength that I had to find within myself. And And I thank you for equipping me to, for the purpose of my life to help others where I was. And so when I look at it from this vantage point, not when you're going through the storm, it doesn't feel like that at all. But I can say thank you for so many gifts, because I truly would not be anywhere near the person I am now, who I like, who I love,
Mm.
and who I'm so happy with. Um, if I were still in that situation, because believe me, when I was in that relationship, there was no self-love. There was no
Yeah. Yeah.
self-care. There was no taking care of myself. There was no prioritizing me. There was none of that was going on. And that's part of the problem.
Mhm.
When you don't pour into yourself first and foremost, that's when life becomes extremely hard. And that's when you can really lose your footing, because you need that self love, that grounding, that knowing who you are and what you stand for. That's your foundation. And that's the place from which you make decisions. Are these people, places, things aligned with who I am and what I know I want to do? And if the answer is no, it's a very easy decision to make on who stays and who goes in your life, or what you do or don't do, or
Right.
things become easier when you align them with your values. Um, and so, yeah, I thank God I don't recognize the person I used to be compared to the person that
Yeah.
I am right now. And and I thank God for the growth, and I thank God for being shaped into who I am. And you don't get shaped without going through some fire. And
Yeah.
so the fire is actually the catalyst needed to propel you to greatness.
Okay, that's a perfect segue because my next question, um, you know, most abuse survivors like myself, we like we don't realize. Quickly, we talked about it earlier, but we don't realize the patterns that we're repeating. We think every situation's a new situation, um, and obviously now I'm understanding that those were just the unhealed parts of me that was begging to be healed, begging to be loved. And it really took like this intense moment of clarity when like everything just like rushed in and like I saw my life like a movie screen just go by. It's like, oh my God, this led to this plus this to this. Like that's how I am here. Um, did you have such a moment? And if yes, like what was the pivotal moment for you when you knew you had to break free and chart a different path? Can you take us back to that time?
Sure. I can remember it was we had a son. We had a child together. I had my son, and it was already not a great relationship. And then, uh, I was living in survival mode and taking care of my son and going to work and trying to do all the things. And life was just very routine, one day after another, same thing, taking care, taking care, taking care, getting through, getting through, getting through. Very automaton, very robotic,
Mhm.
very, there was no life in me. It was automatic. I was just on autopilot living my life. And so I remember being at the window of the house watching the 4th of July fireworks when he was an infant, when he was 1, when he was 2, and when he was 3. Same window. Another year went by. I am crying, silently crying, tears falling down my face, holding my son year after year after year. And that last year I said, not one more year. I am finally ready to to do what I have to do to leave. I knew I would release the hounds of hell. I knew he
Mm.
would make me pay for leaving him. And it took me a while to gather my strength because I knew how vindictive he was and how he was going to do everything in his power to make my life a living hell. I knew that. And it took me a little while to go from that moment to actually filing for divorce. But that's when I made the decision. And
How did you
also,
find the courage to even take that first step, like, from knowing this
mm,
is not the way you want your life to be to, like, I'm making moves towards this?
I really say that the decision was taken from me. I did not have a choice. My soul was telling me either you leave or you die. And I felt like I was dying a slow death anyway. But something inside me made the decision for me. I call it my soul. Um, and I just knew. I went from being undecided and not knowing what to do and living in fear and I can't, and all these things to I must and I will figure it out. I had the strength and the resolve and the clarity
Mm.
to know I have to do this. It's a matter of survival.
I'm smiling right now because I feel like you read all my questions before coming on. Because, like, my next question is about hearing the call. When
Mm,
in the keynote that I deliver, I start off by saying that I believe that there comes a time for, like, people like us, when the call to live life like we were meant to live, it becomes louder than the exterior noise and the distractions that are just clamoring to keep us in our place. It gets so damn loud that it's deafening, and you
yeah,
don't have a choice but to listen
mm,
to it. Like, I thought that was, like, beautiful how you put that, like, you had no choice.
no,
Because if I had a choice, I would, because I can do hard things. That's something I always said, like, I know how to do hard things. If I had the choice, I would do some more hard things there. I did not have the choice. Like, it
mhm,
was too loud.
yeah,
Um, and, it's, definitely resonates with me that you felt that same way as well, that you just had to do
yes,
it because your soul was gonna die if not.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. How did that shift in you, like, emotionally and physically? Did it change how you viewed yourself and your potential in that moment? Like, did you have, like, a sudden, like, "I see myself as I once did before?"
It took a little while, but with every step that I was taking to separate from him, to 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 not have anything to do with him, and to make decisions based solely on me, what was best for myself and my son. Every time I made a decision, um, I did feel like I was getting stronger. It was a slow rebuilding.
Mm,
It was a slow rebuilding, but I started to do things that I never would have done before. I started to say yes to things. I started to expand my mind and my world, a little bit at a time. And
yeah.
with every sort of new thing, I was becoming alive. I was becoming, from being really flatlined, emotionally shut down, like all of this for so long. I really did have to sort of come back to life. And that's how I was able to come back to life, is by investing in me, saying yes to me, doing small things at first, but going to a
Mhm.
concert,
Yeah.
um, going out with friends, um, s- building another network of friends, and just uh, taking a class, whatever it is that spoke to me at that time, but saying yes to it. If it
Yeah.
would grow me, if it would be good for me, if it would be something new and expansive. And everything that's new and expansive is always going to be for your benefit. And so it was a slow rebuild for me, but I could definitely feel a difference and a shift.
Yeah. um Again, like you're moving forward to all my questions, I think it interesting, right? Like, we've identified that, um narcissists all use the same playbook, and I think healing from narcissistic abuse also requires a same playbook for the healing. And you mentioned about expanding and saying yes to things, building a network like it's outside of him. All these things that I had to do. Like, my question was about reclaiming power. Like, what actions did you take to rebuild your sense of self and create a space where you felt safe and grounded? When you
Yeah,
just shared that with us,
yeah.
one of the things, my situation was interesting, where I feel like I did my self development through business, not in like my interpersonal relationships. So I had started a business like right before the pandemic, and it was really trial by fire, right? I left a job that I had making the most money I'd ever make to make like zero money and to try to build this firm out of nothing. The person I had to become to get clients was the person that respected himself, the person that saw his own value, the person that was able to say no. I remember the first time I had to turn away a prospect, because I knew they weren't a right fit. They could pay, they had a lot of money, they could pay. I was like, "You're not a right fit for my firm. You're not a right fit." And I remember the first time I said no, and it was like, "Oh, I'm still alive." And then I said no again, and I said no here, and I said no there, and it wasn't like there. I have emails from people that I said, like, I had certain rules for myself. If they presented this, and this is data, like I found out after working with people that I really didn't like working with. It's like, okay, if someone acts like this in the sales call, chances are they're going to be like this as a client. So I would say no to any time I saw those business red flags, and I became very in tune to what that looked like, and how it would present in a professional relationship.
Yeah.
And so I was practicing all these things that I didn't think for a million years had anything to do with my personal life. But it just gave me confidence to know, like, oh, it's not a big deal to do this. And honestly, your life gets better when you only say yes to the good things versus saying yes to the things that you feel obligated, or you don't want to hurt someone's feelings when you say no or reject someone. Um, unbeknownst to me, I was practicing. Uh,
Mm.
the little thing, that the first little movement, there were two phases of little movements. There was a business phase, and then there was a personal phase. In the business phase, I remember sitting down at my desk and knowing, like, I gotta pick up the phone and make some cold calls. Terrified of it. I'd never done it before. So I read a book by Stephen Geis, a small book called How to Be an Imperfectionist.
Mhm.
And in the book, he talks about essentially making small promises to yourself instead of like, "I'm gonna lose 30 pounds." Like, how about you just, I'm gonna do one push up and one sit up like every day, you know? And of course you do more than one, because like one is easy to do. Even if you're sick, you could do one. But because you keep that promise to yourself, like, you start to trust yourself. So I did that with my business. I put a shot glass on my desk and I took out 10 pennies, and I was like, I'm going to make 10 cold calls at least every day, 10 cold calls. And every time I made a call, I put a penny in the shot glass. Um, to the point where I was doing way over 10, and things were going better. But I tell that story because I realized in retrospect, I didn't know it then, but I had been depositing pennies in my life like the entire time since I was a kid, like times that I felt brave enough to say, stand up to an abuser, um, or to speak truth, or to separate myself when I knew there was nothing there for me anymore. Those are all these little pennies.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that had a massive effect on me, when that call came, being able to actually move. Um, and then post that, there were little things like, you're gonna laugh at this. I was okay with being uncomfortable, so I never made myself comfortable. Like, I
Huh.
would walk with a stone in my shoe just because I didn't want to deal with it then. And then I made a rule, like, if there's anything in my shoe, I'm gonna stop right there to take it out and start it. Or if I was cold in the house, instead of, like, getting up and getting socks, I would just, like, shiver until, for whatever reason, because I was just used to being uncomfortable. So I started, like, making myself comfortable. Like, "Oh, I'm gonna take on a sweater. I'm gonna wear some socks. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna make sure I'm comfortable." Oh my god, that snowballed. It
Yeah.
snowballed, into, um real self-love, because it was care that you're supposed to have for a child, right? Care
Yes.
that, and that if you don't experience, and it sounds, and I'm laughing because they're so small. It's such a small thing, but it was
Yeah.
massive for me. It was massive. Those small things make all the difference. Um, I say all this to ask the question, um, when you look back, what were some pennies that you were depositing in your own cup along the way that, when it was time for you to walk away, made it possible for you to do so?
Well, I kept my financial independence in that, um, even when we were married, if I had stopped working to become a stay-at-home mom, which is a beautiful thing, I'm not saying anything against that in particular. I'm just saying in my case, because he was trying to control me in every single way, the only way he couldn't control me were the finances.
Mm,
And if I had been a stay-at-home mom, or if I had, uh, you know, taken a leave of my job, or something like that, then leaving would have become or seemed impossible to me.
mhm,
Because as it was, I made it by the skin of my teeth. I had to take out a huge loan to get a divorce. Um, I had no money. I remember I couldn't even go on the turnpike to work. I had to go the
mm,
long way around because I didn't have money for tolls. Um, and I was working, and so I can only imagine what things would have been like, or how long it would have taken for me to leave if I didn't have some financial independence. And I thank God that I had that job. And so independence is an important thing, to keep, not just financially, but your essence of who you are. If you have hobbies, if you have passions, if you have interests, and you're creative, or whatever it is that makes you you. You like to dance, or you like
yeah,
to, uh, submit your works for contests. I don't know. Whatever it is that makes you you. You love to sing. Whatever that is your unique self, to continue to do those things that make you you and give you that passion and fill your cup, and and are things that you love. Because with a narcissist, you don't do anything you love. You become so just accustomed to taking care of everyone and everything, and you're nowhere on that list, ever. And I don't know how it happens, but it does happen that, like, every minute of your time is taken up, and none of it was spent on you. Actually, spending any kind of time on you is, in my case, it wasn't allowed. But, um, it's certainly looked down on. You know, there are better things you can be doing with your
Mm,
time than spending it on you, or going to a ceramics class, or going to a business class, or whatever. There's no money for to do that. There's money, plenty of money to do whatever they want to do, but when it comes to something that I want to do, there's no money for that.
mm.
And so trying to keep who you are alive all the time is super important. And so I guess that's the best way that I was able to hold on to myself, because if I didn't have the resources to leave, um, I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah.
I'm sure I would have had to figure out something,
And you
but
would have, but
and I
still, go
would
ahead.
and I would
Yeah.
have, but I thank God that I was able to support myself and my son, at least.
I um that's so powerful. You said for people that maybe financial resources is not what they're able to have independence, but bring yourself back to the things that make you you. I remember when I walked away, one of the first things I did was write a poem, and I hadn't written a poem since 2012.
Wow.
That was the last time I ever wrote a poem, and I used to do it all the time. I used to compose music all the time, and like all that creative outlet gone. And no one ever said stop doing it, right? So it's not like somebody's like, I don't want you to do this anymore, but somehow you just lose yourself along the way. Um, and
Yes,
I
you
and I
do.
had to make a list. I had to go back to make a list of like stuff that I like because I forgot. One of the first things on
Absolutely.
that list was blueberry pancakes. I love blueberries. I love anything with blueberries, and so I'm smiling now to think like that was like one of the first things that I could remember. Like, oh, you like blueberry pancakes and blueberry muffins, and so I would have like a blueberry muffin and there or blueberry pancakes. Um, so it has a very emotional connection to me now, like more than before, where I just liked it. It was like that was like one of the first gifts of love back to myself, like having blueberry pancakes.
Absolutely. I so can feel everything that you just said. Um, and it does start out small. I mean, I can't tell you the number of people I've spoken to that said, like, I don't even know the most basic things about myself anymore. Like, what color do I like?
Yeah.
Like, they lost themselves so completely, and they forgot who they are so completely that they don't know what color they like. They don't know. They forgot that they love blueberries and blueberry pink. It goes down to like such a simple level, it sounds like, but it's actually very profound. And it is one step at a time, and one one memory at a time. You are reminding yourself of who you used to be and the things you used to love, and taking a step to go back to that or find something else that you love
Hmm.
now. But it there really is, that's a beautiful exercise in remembering who you are, is writing down the things that you used to do, and um, uh, way back before you met the narcissist. And so, yeah, it's it sounds like, I even struggle now. Like, how did that happen?
Mm,
How was I so deconstructed, or how was I given such amnesia?
yeah.
I really don't know how to answer the questions. How did I forget who I was at such a core
Yeah.
level? I can't
I
answer
still
that
don't understand. Like, I
question.
don't know how that happened
Yes,
because when I say
I
creativity poured out of me, like, how
yes,
did I stop writing music? Like, I
yes,
I I used to write music in, like, 10 minutes, like,
yes.
easily. Like, how did I stop that?
I understand everything you're saying, and I don't know the answers to those questions, but I do know that it's easier than you think to
Mhm.
remember who you are. It's
Yeah.
easier than you think to get back to who you were. It's easier than you think. And it starts with a baby step. It starts with a blueberry pancake. It
Go
starts
ahead.
with a blueberry muffin, quite literally. It starts with you figuring out what's your favorite color. It
Yeah.
starts with the smallest steps, and you build and you build and you build on that. And um, that's,
That was beautiful. That was beautiful. Um, I'm feeling a little emotional with that, like that small step, like just like it just avalanches.
yeah.
Um, One of the things, and I know we're coming to a close here. One of the things that I find um, a lot of people that I talk to have trouble with is consequences. And I like to talk about like the one superpower that I've always had and that what saved me. And I wish I could just like give people that same, all the time that I put into it, just like transfer it to someone is I've always been able to accept negative consequences. So I don't typically get stuck for a long time because I just accept that something's going to be bad on either side, and so like if it's going to be bad, at least choose the bad that's going to move me towards my dreams and my future. And I'm at a point where I don't believe there's confusion. I don't think confusion really exists. I think it's you know you not wanting to disappoint somebody or you look poor in somebody's eye. I don't really think there's I don't know what to do. It's you just don't like the negative consequences. Can you talk about the costs to stepping into freedom? Like, what was the decision you made where you had to face that fear of like this negative thing will happen to me, but it's standing in the way of my freedom. So I'm going for it anyway, and I'm not going to like feel bad about it. Like it is what it is. I'm not staying stuck. I'm going towards freedom.
Mm, what a great question. So, in my professional life, I was in corporate America for 30 years until my job was sent overseas. But the thing is, I was desperately unhappy for most of those 30 years where I was. Again, I could not fathom doing anything else. I didn't know what else to do or what to retrain in. This is what I knew. This was familiar. This is what I'd given my life to. And I would never have left, even though it was a toxic work culture and we worked all the time and we weren't valued, and it was an unhealthy environment for sure. I would have stayed there if my job hadn't been taken from me. And so it was another gift, right?
Mm,
These things that you don't realize are so hard in the moment are your greatest gift. And people could not understand why I didn't want to go back into corporate America. I tried and it didn't work out because it wasn't supposed to.
mhm.
It's like God said, are you crazy? I liberated you from that. It took me decades to set it up just right. And the first thing you do after I give you your freedom is try and go right back in. And so eventually I got that message that that's not where I belonged and that's not work that I wanted to do. And it wasn't nothing about what I was doing had heart to me,
Mhm.
and I didn't want to be there, but it paid the bills and it gave me and my son the ability to pay bills and live our life. And so by not going into corporate America, again, I started my own business helping seniors and overwhelmed moms. And that was something that I did sort of overnight. It's the easiest thing I've ever done in my life. And
Interesting about that, huh?
I wasn't an entrepreneur. I never had an entrepreneurial bone in my body. I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. And all of a sudden, I'm working for myself. I went from 0 to 40 hours over like so easy. I had more clients than I could help, and it was just a complete revelation. I loved helping people. I loved serving people. I loved making a difference in other people's lives. And I made a lot less money than I did in corporate. I mean, I was still able to pay my bills, but Um, it was nowhere near where I was. And people just couldn't understand. And a lot of people pitied me and thought, how far you have fallen. Like you used to have it all. To them, on the outside, it certainly
Mhm.
looked like I had it all, but I didn't. They didn't know what it was costing me to keep all of this. And I was paying a hefty price on my mental health and my physical health. And nobody knew because I didn't tell anyone.
Right.
And And so people still look at me and think how far you have fallen. And weren't wasn't life better when you were in corporate America? And it's like, well, I don't even answer those questions because I would never like change anything. Life is not perfect, but it is the best it has been ever, ever. I'm happy with who I am. I'm happy with what I'm doing and trying to create in this world and who I want to help. I have purpose and I have a true calling and I have all the important things in my life. I found my faith again after 30 years being away from my faith, and that's been a huge part of my life, along with so many other beautiful things. And I will get exactly where I'm supposed to be by choosing faith over fear and doing all the things and believing in myself
Go ahead.
and not listening to other people. So I move in silence. I do what I know is best for myself. I make decisions that I know are best for me. And I don't put my life on the altar of other people's opinions. Like
Mhm.
what people think about me is none of my business. I just don't even consider other people. They're not living my life. I am. And I'm the only one who knows how unhappy I was. And I'm the only one who knows how happy I am. And I'm
Yeah.
the only one who knows what it took to get here.
Yes. Yes.
And so there's a lot of people who call me crazy. That's okay. They call
That's
you
okay.
crazy and and they think that you're wrong. They think you joined a cult. They think lots of different things, and that's okay. It makes no difference to me.
I'll choose this crazy over the crazy of staying in toxic relationships because, "Oh, that's your mom, that's your dad, that's your brother,"
Oh,
like
yeah.
these contracts, these social contracts that we have that we're the only ones following and the other parties break it every day, but, like,
Exactly.
somehow it
Yeah.
makes sense to, like, continue to participate in the delusion.
Yep. It's so true.
Um this has been an amazing conversation. One of the things that I've been wanting to start doing, I feel like years ago, she did it like once. She made the statement like something something this I believe, and
Mm.
so I wanted to start asking my guests, after everything you've been through and everything you've learned, what is it that you know for sure in the deepest part of your being? And I'd love you to answer that, and after you answer it, say this I believe.
Mm. That's a beautiful question. Um, One thing I know for sure is that nobody knows how to make me happy except me. And I have to take responsibility for me. And I have to do what's best for me. And I can't expect other people to understand what I do or like what I do. But as long as I understand and like what I'm doing, that's really all that matters. And this, I believe.
Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth. I know you do a lot of work with specifically women who have themselves suffered under narcissistic abuse. Can you tell our listeners where we can connect with you, learn more about your work, and support your mission?
Sure. You can contact me at thegoodcalling.com. You can book a free discovery session there, and we can figure out the next steps to get you back on your journey home to yourself and reclaim your life.
Awesome. And of course, we'll put all the description to all of that in the description so you'll be able to access it easily. Thank you so much for sharing your story and wisdom with us today. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this episode of Rising from the Shadows. And remember, healing isn't the absence of shadows, it's learning to thrive in your own light. So rise today, rise tomorrow, rise always, because the shadow doesn't stand a chance. Thank you and take care.
Thank you.
That's it for today's episode of Rising from the Shadows. I want to thank you for listening and for being a part of this incredible community of survivors and thrivers. If this episode or any other episode resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. I also want to hear from you. If you have a personal story of rising above life's challenges to become the best version of yourself, and you'd like to share it on the podcast, send me a DM on Instagram at Rise with Marlon or email at marlon@marlonwesh.com. I would love to connect with you. And if you're ready to break through and build unstoppable momentum in your life, head over to marlonwesh.com to learn about private coaching or for booking me to speak at your event. Until next time, live the life you want to live and live it on your own terms.